Hello, and welcome to Mystery Road. My name is Taylor.
And my name is Donovan. Mystery Road is a monthly podcast that examines the dark, strange, and unknown.
Want more updates on the show? Follow us on Instagram at Mystery Road Pod. Have suggestions and ideas for future shows? Email us at mysteryroadpod@gmail.com.
Help support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/Mystery Road Pod. Now, let's take a stroll down Mystery Road.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Mystery Road Podcast. I'm your host, Taylor, and joining me today is my co-host, Donovan. How are you doing today, Donovan?
I'm doing great, Taylor. I'm thrilled about today's episode topic. We have a perplexing and chilling case to unravel. Today, we embark on a journey through the haunting tale of the Texarkana Moonlight Murders, also known as the Phantom Killer Case. These unsolved crimes occurred in and around the Texarkana area, a city straddling the Texas and Arkansas border during the spring of 1946. It remains one of the most infamous unsolved murder mysteries in American history.
The Texarkana Moonlight Murders sent shockwaves through the community, causing the whole town to shut down at sundown. And still today, the case continues to captivate true crime enthusiasts. Let's begin by providing an overview of the case and the series of crimes.
The Phantom Killer's reign of terror spanned approximately 10 weeks, from February 22nd to May 3rd, 1946. The assailant targeted young couples parked in secluded Lover Lane areas, employing a .32 caliber firearm as his weapon of choice. The details of each case are hauntingly intriguing.
The Phantom Killer's killing spree started with two victims, Jimmy Hollis and Mary Jean Larry, which took place on February 22, 1946. Jimmy, age 25, and Mary, age 19, were parked in a secluded area known as Lover's Lane, just outside of Texarkana. It was around 11:55 p.m. when their lives took a terrifying turn.
A man wearing a white cloth mask suddenly appeared and knocked on the car window. When Jimmy rolled down the window, the assailant, described as a tall man wearing a dark coat, pulled out a gun and ordered them out of the car. It was a nightmare scenario for the young couple.
The Phantom Killer directed Jimmy and Mary to get out of the vehicle. Jimmy was ordered to remove his pants, and when he complied, the assailant struck him twice with the butt of his gun, rendering him unconscious. Unfortunately for the couple, the brutality didn't end there. The Phantom Killer then turned his attention to Mary, striking her in the head with his pistol.
Afterward, the assailant instructed Mary to stand up and run. She managed to reach a parked car before the attacker caught up to her. When the Phantom Killer asked her why she ran, Mary recounted that he instructed her to do so. But he called her a liar and knocked her unconscious. While unconscious, Mary was sexually assaulted with the attacker's pistol. It's heart-wrenching to hear about this physical and emotional trauma inflicted on these young victims. Thankfully, Mary regained consciousness and was able to run to a nearby house and call for police.
The police arrived promptly and began questioning Mary. Meanwhile, a Good Samaritan driving down the road found Jimmy and rushed him to the hospital. Once Jimmy regained consciousness, he too was questioned by the police. Interestingly, both victims provided conflicting descriptions of the assailant. Mary described him as a light-skinned African-American, while Jimmy described him as Caucasian. This disparity added an extra layer of complexity to this investigation.
Not only that, but police also suspected Mary of lying and possibly knowing the attacker. However, this theory was never substantiated. The first attack sent shockwaves throughout the Texarkana community. The brutality and randomness of the crime created an atmosphere of fear and paranoia, with people afraid to venture out at night.
Law enforcement faced an uphill battle in their efforts to apprehend this elusive and dangerous criminal. And this was just the beginning. The Phantom Killer's violent acts continued, with a series of subsequent crimes that escalated in nature.
On March 23, 1946, the Phantom Killer committed his first double murder. The victims of this heinous crime were Richard Griffin, age 29, and Polly Ann Moore, age 17. Richard and Pollyann, like the previous victims, had parked their car in a secluded Lover's Lane area known as Spring Lake Park, near Highway 67 West. But little did they know their peaceful evening would turn into a nightmare.
At around 10 p.m., a passing motorist noticed a parked 1941 Oldsmobile off the highway in a groove. Initially, the motorist thought the couple had fallen asleep. However, upon further consideration, he realized that this area wasn't a typical spot for motorists to park, especially with numerous hotels nearby. Something felt off, and he decided to investigate.
What he discovered was truly horrifying. The bodies of Richard and Pollyann laid lifeless inside the car. Both had suffered multiple gunshot wounds. Police quickly concluded this was the continued merciless work of the Phantom Killer. Richard, a former Navy Seabee, was shot twice inside the car, with one bullet piercing his head. But the evidence indicated that Pollyann had been taken out of the vehicle.
It appeared that Pollyann was sexually assaulted before the assailant callously ended her life, shooting her in the head and then returning her lifeless body to the car. It's an unthinkable tragedy. Law enforcement arrived at the scene after the incident was reported, launching an extensive investigation. A bloody blanket found outside of the car and signs of bloodstains and drag marks suggested a sinister act had taken place. The similarities between this attack and the previous one led investigators to believe that the same individual, the Phantom Killer, was responsible for both crimes.
People became increasingly concerned for their safety, and law enforcement faced immense pressure to solve the case and bring this cold-blooded killer to justice. However, law enforcement would not be able to find him before the next attack.
Our third victims are Betty Jo Booker, a 15-year-old high school student, and her friend Paul Martin, age 16. On April 14, 1946, Betty Jo and Paul were just two young individuals innocently embarking on an evening together. Paul was taking her to a sleepover when unexpectedly their plans took a dark turn. For reasons still unknown, Paul's car was found abandoned near the entrance of Spring Lake Park, discovered by a passing motorist. The car lights were still on and the driver's door was left open. The Good Samaritan knew something was amiss.
A scene of dread settled over the community as the news unfolded. At around 6:30 a.m., Paul's lifeless body was discovered on the north side of the park, approximately a mile and a half from his abandoned car. The brutality of the crime is deeply disturbing. Paul had been shot 4 times, each bullet piercing different parts of his body, through the nose, the left fourth rib, the right hand, and finally, the back of his neck.
At 11:30 a.m., Betty Jo's lifeless body was found approximately 2 miles away from Paul's location. She had been sexually assaulted and shot twice in the chest and once in the face, ending her young life. The level of brutality inflicted upon these innocent teens is truly heart-wrenching. Ballistic tests confirmed that the .32 caliber bullets were used by the assailant, further linking these crimes to the Phantom Killer. Despite extensive investigations and searches, the identity of the Phantom Killer remained elusive.
The final attack happened on May 3rd, 1946, at the home of Virgil Starks and his wife Katie. At around 9 p.m., an unidentified assailant approached the Starks' home and unleashed a barrage of gunfire through the window. Virgil was struck by the bullets, sustaining grave injuries to his face and neck. Tragically, Virgil did not survive the attack.
The brutality inflicted upon the Starks didn't end there. Katie, too, fell victim to the assailant's violence. She was shot in the cheek, causing her upper and lower jaw to separate. The gunshot wounds were severe, but miraculously, Katie managed to survive. Despite her injuries, Katie showed immense resilience. She bravely fled from the attacker, seeking help and safety. She made her way to her sister's house, only to find it empty. Undeterred, Katie continued her search for assistance, eventually arriving at the Prater farmhouse. There, she was able to contact authorities for help.
The response from authorities and medical personnel was swift. They arrived at the scene tending to Katie's injuries and providing the support she desperately needed. She was subsequently transported to the hospital for further treatment. The attack on May 3, 1946, marked a significant deviation from the Phantom Killer's previous modus operandi. This time, the violence occurred within the victim's own home, rather than a secluded lover's lane. This shift intensified fear and alarm within the community, shattering the perception of safety even within one's own home.
It's important to note, however, there are differing opinions regarding the involvement of the Phantom Killer in this particular crime. Some investigators and experts believe it to be the work of the same individual, while others debate its connection to the earlier attacks.
One of the biggest suspects in the Phantom Killer case is Yoel Sweeney, who resided in the Texarkana area during the time of the murders. He appeared on police radar after being arrested with a stolen car that was abandoned near the crime scene of Betty Jo and Paul. Sweeney's wife, Peggy, later came to retrieve the stolen car and was subsequently arrested.
Peggy's arrest led to a significant turn of events. During her interrogation, she made a detailed confession, asserting that Yoel Sweeney was the elusive Phantom Killer responsible for the murders of Betty Jo and Paul. However, it is important to note that Peggy's account continued to evolve over subsequent interviews, and the changing narrative casted doubt on the veracity of her initial confession. While there are some circumstantial pieces of evidence that seem to align with her story, the lack of her voluntary testimony against Yoel weakened the case against him.
Ultimately, the evidence against Sweeney was not strong enough to bring formal charges against him for the Texarkana Moonlight murders. However, it is worth noting that he was arrested on unrelated charges including car theft, which led to a prison sentence. Sweeney served time in jail until 1973 for his other offenses.
The Texarkana Moonlight murders, attributed to the Phantom Killer, involved a myriad of potential suspects. This complex investigation required the collaboration of multiple law enforcement agencies, including the Texarkana Police Department, Miller County Sheriff's Office, and the Arkansas State Police. However, the lack of substantial evidence and the killer's elusive nature posed significant obstacles to making progress in the case.
Law enforcement faced immense challenges in identifying the Phantom Killer. The absence of reliable eyewitnesses, the killer's use of disguises, and the remote locations of the attacks all contributed to the difficulty of apprehending the culprit. Moreover, the limitations of forensic technology and investigative resources available during that time period further impeded the investigation's progress. Despite the dedicated efforts of the involved police jurisdictions, no solid lead was found, and the true identity of the Phantom Killer has never been definitively confirmed.
One of the more notorious theories of the Phantom Killer are the similarities between him and the infamous Zodiac Killer. Both the Phantom Killer and the Zodiac Killer left a dark mark in the history of true crime. For those of you unfamiliar with the Zodiac Killer, he was an American serial killer that was active from 1968 to 1969 in the Northern California Bay Area. Just like the Phantom Killer, the Zodiac Killer never faced justice for his crimes.
Another striking similarity is the killer's pursuit of attention and notoriety. The Zodiac Killer sent cryptic letters to newspapers taunting authorities and claiming responsibility for each of his crimes in California. Likewise, the Phantom Killer generated significant media attention and instilled fear within the Texarkana community during his reign of terror.
The need for concealment and the utilization of masks or disguises is another shared characteristic between the two cases. The Phantom Killer reportedly wore a white cloth mask during the attacks, while the Zodiac Killer famously wore a hood or mask to hide his identity during his encounters with victims.
Both killers also targeted couples. The Phantom Killer attacked couples parked in secluded areas known as lovers' lanes, while the Zodiac Killer targeted couples in various locations, including remote areas and popular tourist spots. It's a chilling parallel between the two cases.
It's crucial to note, however, that despite these similarities, there are significant differences between the cases as well. Geographic location, specific methods of operation, and the impact on the communities targeted all differ. Each case possesses its unique characteristics, and they are separate and distinct criminal investigations.
Let's now explore the cultural impact and legacy of the Texarkana Moonlight Murders through the lens of two notable films, both named The Town That Dreaded Sundown. The 1976 film, directed by Charles B. Pierce, is a loose dramatization of the Texarkana Moonlight Murders, blending elements of true crime with fictional storytelling. It follows a young couple who find themselves targeted by a hooded serial killer.
The Town That Dreaded Sundown from 1976 is known for its atmospheric tone and suspenseful sequences. While it takes inspiration from the real-life events, it incorporates fictional elements to enhance the storytelling and create a captivating viewing experience.
Fast forward to 2014, we have a meta sequel of the same name. Directed by Alfonso Gomez-Reyon, this version takes place in present-day Texarkana and features a fictionalized story of a young woman who becomes obsessed with the unsolved murders and begins her own investigation. The 2014 film pays homage to the original while adding its own twists and turns. It recognizes the enduring impact of the Texarkana Moonlight Murders on the community and explores how the crimes continue to captivate the public imagination.
It's important to note that both of these movies are works of fiction. While they draw inspiration from the real-life events of the Texarkana Moonlight Murders, they incorporate fictional elements and create liberties to enhance the storytelling. These films contribute to the lasting notoriety of the Texarkana Moonlight Murders and help keep the story in the public consciousness. They have played a role in shaping the legacy and the cultural impact of the Phantom Killer.
However, it's crucial for our listeners to remember that these movies are not documentary accounts of actual events. As we explore true crime, it's essential to distinguish between factual accounts and fictionalized interpretations. These films provide a unique perspective on the Texarkana Moonlight Murders and the enduring fascination they hold.
That's it for this episode. Thank you all very much for taking the time to listen to our podcast. Next month, we'll be traveling across America to Area 51 to investigate the abnormal life of Bob Lazar. If you like our content, please like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Mystery Road Pod. Also, consider donating to our show at patreon.com/Mystery Road Pod to help support the show. If you have any ideas for future shows, email us at mysteryroadpod@gmail.com. Links will be in the show notes.